do a bit of swapsy. That hasn't survived the trip well at all. Hello and welcome to Missle Industries Ford Falcon 351 project, episode 69. Now in today's episode I'm going to address one of the long-standing things this car has had in its interior that I've been pretty comfortable to live with, and that's the manual 6-cylinder steering column this car came with. Now, as I've addressed in earlier videos, this car started out its life as a 6-cylinder column shift manual, complete with 6-cylinder column shifter. Now, after I tidied the interior up, there was still a big column shift handle sticking out of the steering column, which I wasn't really a big fan of, so I thought I'd just chop it off. And it's been pretty easy to live with it since then. But a few months ago I did find myself a ZH floor shift steering column for sale down in South Australia for $70, and the guy was happy to ship it up to me for another $30. So it arrived at my place months and months and months ago for $100, and I haven't actually opened it to have a look at it yet. Let's see if it lives up to my expectations. That bit there didn't survive the freight. Hopefully I can steal the one off my steering column. Oh Jesus, do a bit of swapsy. That hasn't survived the trip well at all. Hopefully it's not too much of a basket case. A little bit of massacred wiring. That's alright, I can sort that out. It does come with a key though. Alright, I have the column apart. The furniture is a bit battered, but when I pull my other column out of the car I should be able to transfer the plastics from my column onto this column here, and obviously all the instrument levers as well. I've gone through the ignition barrel, it all looks like it works. Biggest concern is tidying up this mess here, but I can pull those pins out of that plug, get some heat shrink tubing over those, and basically insulate them from each other to prevent any future wiring fires. That should work out alright. I'm not sure if this plug is the same as the plug in my car. From what I can tell without pulling the car apart, they look the same. Car is up on axle stands in its natural habitat, and I've already WD-40'd the two steering column bolts that hold the steering column onto the steering box. So all I need to do now is get stuck into pulling the interior apart and undoing those two bolts to the steering box. The good news is that plug looks like it's the same. My one's nowhere near as smashed up as the one on my new column though. Alright, change of tactic. I've pulled the pinch bolt out of the clamp that goes onto the spline for the steering box, because that's by far the easiest one to get access to. So hopefully now I'll undo the steering column and pull all that stuff out through the firewall. Alright then, old column shift steering column is out. That actually went pretty well. It slid right off the spline of the steering box. All I have to do now is swap over all the furniture and put the new column in. There we have it. There is the new blank column with all the furniture from my old column transferred over to it. I've repaired the wiring for the ignition plug, taken away all those extra pieces of wire, heat shrunk the ones back together that are going to be a concern for shorting out. So they're all tidied up. I've swapped over my non-mangled firewall bracket. I've fitted my shroud on from my old column. Here we are. Floor shift column installed. All those little arms that used to connect to the column change gearbox are gone, in place of this nice clean floor shift column in the engine bay. Summary time for episode 69. My apologies for the gloomy lighting. It's actually another rainy day here in southeast Queensland. One of many we've had so far this year. But anyway, my ZH column is in. The reinstallation process was pretty straightforward. It was just a case of poking it through the firewall and lining it up with the steering box, and then tapping it gently back into place because the steering column has a collapsible shaft. I wasn't aware of that I had to tap onto the steering box to get it all to reconnect. And after that, everything else lined up. All the plastic furniture from my old column was transferred over, barring this ring here that replaces the old column shift manual shifter ring. So obviously that's gone. That was the whole intention of this project, is to make this interior look a little bit more factory floor shift. And as far as I'm concerned today, job done. I'm very pleased. Here's my old column, probably going to be stuck on a shelf somewhere to gather dust. I would have liked to have cannibalized the ignition switch and the barrel off this and put it into my other car, because I suspect the new one probably has 1,000,000 miles on it, whereas this one hasn't really seen much action. So it's a shame to go without that, but onwards and upwards. One last thing to do before I sign off this episode is cross that swap steering column to do off my 2022 to-do list.